15th. We're so happy to be back with you today. And we have an amazing, phenomenal guest with us. My colleague, who I get the privilege of chatting with today, Stephanie from the City of Scottsdale in Arizona, everybody. This is going to be a great
Hello.
conversation. So we're excited. And we're going to get started in just a minute. We're sharing now on my professional page. So you should now see these fireside chats. If you're watching from Facebook, you should see this pop up on the Shanequa Moore page, streamlined so that we can reach a greater number of people. And if you're watching it on LinkedIn, you should also see it on my Shanequa Moore page. Please support the content. We want to lift the message up, elevate it, and get it out to as many people as possible. We're in for a treat today. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe so that you can get updates when we get new content out. Definitely subscribe, and you're going to subscribe to iRay's YouTube channel directly, and that's going to be at irays.org. So please subscribe, comment as well when you're listening to the content if you feel like you want to. We'd love to hear from you. We want you to definitely be engaged as we're chatting. And of course, we're always grateful that you're spending these 30 minutes with us. So thank you all so much. Let's jump right into it. Stephanie, hi.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. No, thank you for being with me and thank you for sharing this space. Stephanie and I are, I'm going to read her bio in just a minute, but we are actually colleagues and we just finished our Harvard University IPP, which stands for Implementing Public Policy Executive Education Program. Yay to us.
We did it.
It was so much work. And oh my goodness, what do we say about that experience, Stephanie? It was amazing, but it was a lot. We really had to take our what we learned and take it back to our workspaces. So we're going to talk a little bit about the behind the scene work in Stephanie's world, what that looked like, and working for the city of Scottsdale, working in Arizona government. So I love it. I'm excited to hear about it, but I want to formally introduce Stephanie Zamora to all of you that are watching. So Stephanie has a master's of public administration from Arizona, State University. And she currently serves the city of Scottsdale as a management associate, acting on behalf of the city manager's office to analyze and address organizational and community challenges by working across divisions. Stephanie earned the Hispanic Alumni Association Scholarship and completed her bachelor's degree in anthropology and linguistics, from the University of Arizona. And she also formed a part of a student-led grassroots organization that secured lifetime funding for all cultural and resource centers at the university. That is extremely astonishing. Um, some other things about Stephanie. Previous to public sector service, she published research on the linguistic appropriation of African American English by corporations as a marketing strategy. She also worked in many other fields that I'd love for her to talk about. If there's anything that I missed, I'd love for you to also lift that up, Stephanie. And she hopes to continue to fulfill her personal mission of serving others by refining her skills and executive leadership. So, again, welcome, Stephanie, and to all those that are meeting her for the first time. I introduce to you formally Stephanie Zamora. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks so much, Shanequa. And again, I'm super happy to be here and speaking to you post IPP, which was 7 months of just brain stretching completely, unlearning, relearning, finding new definitions for the way that we do our work. And it has truly been life-changing. And I'm so grateful to have done that at the beginning of my public service career. Previous to this work, I was in the nonprofit sector, I worked in human rights, I worked in advocacy, and that has its own structures. And then transitioning over into local government, it's a completely new ballgame. So I'm really grateful to have acquired all this learning through IPP at the beginning of my public service career so that I can have practical tools in my toolbox to actually make change and not spend so much time trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, if you will, when it comes to finding solutions to our challenges. So I'm so grateful for that experience.
I love that. You know, Stephanie, we learned so much, and I think you explained it so well, brain stretching. There were many times when I was like, yeah, I don't know if I can take any more information, and there's so much content that was so rich. One of the things that we learned amongst the thousand things we learned in a program was about the way in which government operates. And we talked about the idea of silos and how many times governments tend to operate in silo and don't necessarily uh, collaborate as much as we should. And so I was wondering if you can speak to a little bit about whether that's been the case for you at the City of Scottsdale and how that has played out in your work.
I think that was at the core of my challenge, and I'll speak a little bit to that. So when I first got to the City of Scottsdale, I was actually working here as a Marvin Andrews Fellow in Urban Management. And every year we hire a fellow from Arizona State University. I happened to be the one last year, and we give the fellows slash interns meaningful projects that they can work on throughout the year to sort of build up their practical skills in local government. And I got two. One was reestablishing our critical incident peer support team um, for to be citywide. You know, public first responders have those groups obviously because they deal with pretty intense things on the day-to-day basis, like firefighters and police officers as well. But we wanted to establish something similar for non-public safety employees, so we got to do that. And the second challenge was, you know, the original ask was find more or create more internships for students at the City of Scottsdale. Okay, we can figure that out. And so I started to do some of that work. But as I started to get into it, I realized that it's more complex than that. So my challenge became, how do we get emerging professionals and young people, especially from the high schools and the community colleges in Scottsdale, to be more interested in performing public service, right? It's a national conversation in regards to some of the hardships that the public sector is having in recruiting talent and retaining talent. So it has more to do with that. And even that is even more complex, right? We can always dig up more. And as an anthropologist, that's what we do. We ask why and why and why and how until we get to the core problem, which I think is what was so interesting about IPP, is that we were given the freedom and the space to do that. And that's been super helpful. And to answer your question about silos, that was sort of at the core of my challenge. We have a really long and successful history with interns and volunteers here at the city. I think we have upwards of 2,000 volunteers working at the city, and we have interns that have had great experiences in many different departments. But what we wanted to do is sort of have these opportunities be more continuous and not sort of one-off. So departments have interns, volunteers coming in and out all the time, and that's fabulous. We want to preserve that as much as possible. But we also want to establish a centralized and more formal and continuous internship program that's citywide, that departments can benefit from and that students can benefit from mutually, and not necessarily be at the mercy of who has the budget for it or who has the know-how for it, right? So that's been sort of at the core of how do we get a citywide and organizational-wide service learning program established at the city that anybody can benefit from. And that has not been the easiest, but I think one thing that we have been able to do, myself and my team, is sort of build up the acceptance for it. And that's been great.
I love that. And you're now talking about the triple A's for those that are probably wondering what acceptance is. And we'll probably revisit that, but it is actually one of the strategies and methodologies that we learned within our IPP program in dealing with complex problems and working with people and working in teams. But you said a lot of great information, Stephanie, and I kind of want to revisit a number of things that you mentioned. One of them was the idea of the emerging professionals being interested in public service. And I was wondering if you can speak a little bit to your lived experience of what that's been like starting a career very young and public service. What was that trajectory like, coming in as a fellow and then transitioning into a more professional role in public service?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I studied anthropology in undergrad, and that led me to work in human rights and specifically in the space of immigration and migrant justice. And I know we want to touch on that in more depth at a later time, but I did a lot of advocacy work, and I got to understand how these public-private partnerships can work out for the benefit of those that are being affected by the negative outcomes of policy, like the families that I work with, which were specifically families of migrants that have disappeared crossing the US-Mexico border. So my learning in anthropology led me to work for this organization, the Colibri Center for Human Rights, and I was advocacy director there. And I loved that job. That job was the most meaningful work I've done to date, giving families hope, answers, closure, advocating on their behalf with elected officials or anybody that would listen, really, because it's such a niche topic when in the umbrella of immigration, that you just have to fight and fight and fight to get their voices heard. And I really enjoyed that job. However, as you can imagine, it was very emotionally taxing. There was a lot of secondhand trauma involved in that job, dealing with loss and ambiguous loss and grief and all these very complex human experiences with the families. I'm grateful to have walked alongside those journeys with them, but at that time, I was not equipped to do that job to the ability I know I could do it now, probably. So I wanted to explore what is a way that I could continue to give to my communities and be that helping hand and be an agent of change, but not necessarily at my own physical and mental expense. And I kind of wanted to get into law and things like that. However, there wasn't a lot of financial assistance in that space that I was able to find, but I was able to find this fellowship in public administration. And since I'd worked in advocacy, I'd worked alongside elected officials. I had worked on policy, passing policy at the federal level. And we worked alongside the Pima County Medical Examiner. I kind of got to understand how government works a little bit from the nonprofit angle, but I want to know more. And this is when I applied to the Marvin Andrews Fellowship, and I earned it and spent 2 years learning about public administration and local government. What drew me to it was that it seemed a little bit more proactive than reactive, like I was experiencing in the nonprofit sector. And that's what really drew me to public sector work and especially local government work. I think in local government, depending on the size of your organization, you can kind of see your efforts materialize more than you might see working on policy at the federal level, because that's a whole different beast, right? And even here, it might not happen tomorrow, but you can sort of work to see your efforts materialize more. And that's what really drew me to public service. And I'm hoping to inspire others to sort of pursue that, although it's not easier. It's just, it's not as frustrating, I think, as working with the federal government.
Wow, that was really insightful. For those that may be wondering what the Marvin Fellowship is that you were able to receive, can you expound on that just briefly?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Marvin Andrews Fellowship in Urban Management is a 2-year fellowship at Arizona State University, and it is for students wanting to pursue a Master of Public Policy or a Master of Public Administration. So a fellowship, this fellowship affords you first year is a research position at ASU. So you're doing research on behalf of local governments and municipal governments across the country. And it could be, I worked on anything from looking up what are the policy implications for legalizing recreational marijuana? What did these 5 cities do to establish a tree canopy in their city? I also did work on how cemeteries are managed in municipal government. So you will touch on so many different topics in that first year, and it's incredible. It opens your mind to how cities work. And we have 90,000 local governments in this country, so they really are the day-to-day. engine for the country, right, in terms of local government work. The second year, you get a service learning opportunity. So you are placed in a city within the Phoenix metropolitan area. And I was invited to perform my service learning year at the City of Scottsdale. And that's how I got started in it. Other colleagues of mine have worked for City of Avondale, City of Peoria, Goodyear, you name it, we've been there. And it really is an incredible opportunity to get your master's degree paid for. Number one, I got a full scholarship to receive to earn my Master of Public Administration, and I was able to get 2 years of work experience. So it's really a win-win. It is a ton of hard work. I had 2 jobs the whole time I was in school, and it was during a pandemic, so that was kind of wild. But
Yeah.
overall, it affords you a really great opportunity to advance your education and get more work experience in local government.
That is so inspiring, Stephanie. I'm thinking about this fellowship idea, and I have some other things that I want us to touch on, but just the idea of how you were able to go through this fellowship, which was such an amazing educational and economic benefit and opportunity for you, and how you were able to translate that into a professional position where you're working on citywide initiatives, all while doing what you love. And I'm wondering if you can speak more to the importance of having these types of fellowship programs, not just in your
Mhm.
city in Scottsdale, but in other cities where there may be emerging leaders or emerging professionals like yourself that
Mhm.
are looking for an opportunity like this to further their education and maybe to get into public service.
Mhm.
You speak a little more to the importance of that and ways in which we could sort of expand these types of fellowship programs.
Sure. So I'll take a little bit of a step back and sort of give a little bit of context of why I personally think these programs should expand. So I was actually born in Mexico and I came to the United States when I was 3 years old. And with all odds stacked against me and my mother, we made it somehow, right? And I know that I have gotten to where I am in life because of the educational opportunities that were given to me, because teachers, professors, coaches saw something in me and they nurtured it and pushed me along, even when I resisted it, right? So along the way, I was able to connect with, like I said, teachers, professors, coaches that knew about programs or knew about XYZ thing and encouraged me to do it. Sometimes I had no idea what I was doing. And
Mhm.
obviously, being from a first generation immigrant household and being the eldest daughter, I was kind of doing this on my own and just kind of going for things, right? Even at a very, very young age. And that's an experience for a lot of first generation immigrant students, right? So if your organization is one that believes in giving opportunity to people like me that are just looking for some guidance, an opportunity, a chance, this is a really great way to do it by supporting these sort of educational initiatives, fellowships, internships, scholarships, coaching, mentoring, all that I've had throughout my life, and I'm endlessly grateful for it. Um,
Oh,
from fifth grade on, right? And I was able to, from middle school, I was able to transition into University High, which is a public school, but it's a very academically rigorous college prep sort of school. From there,
mhm.
I was able to get support to earn this Hispanic Alumni Scholarship, which was so nurturing. And it was kind of like a fellowship in itself because they encourage you to pursue different career options within that scholarship. And from there, being connected to the Marvin Andrews Fellowship, sometimes people just need a chance and just need an in. And it's our duty to create those for others when they were created for us and given to us. So that's, I believe that they're super important because looking at my own life, really the odds were totally stacked against me to never get here. And I did because people helped me and people saw something in me as a student and as a person. And I'm endlessly grateful and I'm happy to be working towards that to establish that for other students now.
I am just so inspired 100 times again when I hear your story, Stephanie, and just all that you were able to overcome after coming into this country and just knowing the what your mom faced and the story yet untold that hopefully we'll hear more the next time we bring you back on, because we will, is you are adopted into the family. Um,
Yay!
but to hear, when you talked about being in a first generation immigrant household and some of the challenge that you had to overcome, but then also the opportunities that you were afforded. And had you not been afforded that, where really would you be if you didn't get the opportunity for someone to believe in you, to take a chance on you, and to see the potential that you
Mhm.
had all locked up in you.
Yeah.
But they were able to see that when they seen you, through coaching, through mentorship, through scholarships, and now seeing how you were able to take that investment that was placed in you and now invested in a whole new generation. It is the most inspiring thing. It is what life is about. It is why
Yeah.
we do this. And I'm just so inspired when I hear that. It really is. I'm at a loss of words, but it really is inspiring. But I'm wondering if you can speak a little more to some of the challenges that you faced being in a first generation immigrant household, and then following up with transitioning into this role as a young female Latina, what those challenges have been for you as well. So starting first with the first generation immigrant household challenges, and then transitioning that into your current role and what those challenges have been.
Yeah, I think growing up, I always heard you need to go to school, you need to get an education, but I was never really shown how. So I've had to kind of figure that out on my own along the way. And
Mm.
sometimes you like, oh, I wish you get to like thinking and like you wish things were different, but everything happens for a reason. And I now feel like I'm very independent and self-sufficient and all those great things, because I had to figure it out by myself. And those were the conditions that I was working under. And you can't really, I personally wouldn't want to sit there and regret it or anything like that. It happened how it was supposed to happen, and that's how I sort of see things. And but that did come with certain challenges, right? So um, sometimes or a lot of the times growing up and going through high school and undergrad and things like that, always felt like I was playing catch up. And even now, sometimes it feels like that because I don't have knowledge that was passed down to me about how things work from my parents. I just didn't. They passed down to me knowledge about a lot of other things in life, practical things in life that I need to survive every day. But in terms of having an understanding about how some of these systems work, how things are done, how things operate, I've always had to play catch up there. And I'm grateful for that. I have a curious and inquisitive mind because I've always been able to keep up. However, that's one of the main challenges is that I feel like I've had to learn things from zero. Whereas maybe other people that are from here that have been here for generations maybe know how things work and how things operate. Um, but that was a real challenge and it continues to be today. I just don't let it hold me back, but it does sort of present itself here and there still, because I didn't have any sort of knowledge or information inherited to me about how stuff works in this country. Kind of had to figure it out as I went along. And then also just, that pressure of being the oldest daughter and being that example and like the expectation of like perfection kind of was there. And I think that it's still there. I do it to myself now because that's just the way I've lived.
Mhm.
But again, I think all of these challenges have actually turned into strengths of mine. And although it wasn't easy, I now like see the value in it and I try to give back to others. Like I have a mentee at ASU now. I just helped my youngest sister fill out her FAFSA and I'm gonna help her like
Yes, congratulations.
search for all kinds of scholarships. She wants to study business and sports business, and I don't know anything about that, but we'll figure it out together. So I think that all those things led to just having this like leader spirit inside, although it was pretty challenging and still is to this day. But we keep moving along and we keep helping people to the best of our abilities, and it happened how it was supposed to, I think.
I love that. It's so true. And, even the insight that you gave us just now on that many people may have not been privy to, but the idea of having to always play catch up because you don't have that information passed down from your parents to say, oh, just go to this system or go to this resource. This is how you navigate through this, or this is how you navigate through education. But when you really don't have that information passed down from your parent, you really are trying to learn it. And so that's really insightful. I think even for us, whether we're a nonprofit or in government, but thinking of programs to really make this type of information accessible to our kids
Yes.
that are in first generation immigrant households, to really support them and help them to access this knowledge and these resources. These are the technical things that a lot of
Mm.
times we don't consider and don't think about. So,
That's
Stephanie, what?
actually that was actually one of my like bones on the fishbone diagram that we worked on in the IPP is that why don't young people or emerging professionals, why aren't they participating in public service? One of them
Mhm.
was they probably don't know the
They don't.
information necessary of what opportunities are out there for them and how to access them.
Right.
How are you going to participate in something you don't know exists? You're not
Wow.
going to. So that was like one of my fish bones. I don't know that I've gotten to work on it as much. I think that's one of the toughest ones because it has a lot of external factors like your family and belief systems and community and that kind of stuff. But that was one of them. How on earth are you going to participate in something you don't know exists? You're not gonna. So
That
it's a real challenge.
that's really profound, and we don't think about it that way, but it really is that simple. I think about my past life in public service, and when I had graduated my master's degree, and I think just in pursuit of a job, a friend and myself, we were, I don't know how, we were in the thick of like Manhattan, and they were handing out these papers like, take the city civil service exam, and I'm like, what is that? He's like, I don't know, let's take it now. I'm like, let's do it. What in the world is going on? Went and took it, but would have never known about it had we never been in that particular place to receive that flyer that I'm not even sure who was even handing out. Um, but I think even that, the information, where, who knows about it? Because it's not that no one knows. There is a group of people that know about it. They know, right, how to get into these fields and these sectors. But our communities of color, these are the ones that we also need to make sure we need a plan of how to get this information out into our communities of color so that our kids know, and we can start recruiting our kids from high school to be able to have these type of opportunities, because it is, we do need our communities of color represented in public service as well.
Yeah, I think so too. And that sort of is probably another fishbone. But once they do get through the door, how are we ensuring that they are part of an organization or establishments where they feel they belong? That's a new thing that I'm learning about in diversity, equity, and inclusion is this concept of belonging. And our diversity program director, Jackie Johnson here at Scottsdale, she's been sort of teaching us about this concept of belonging. That's a whole other fishbone that I hope I get to work on as well.
Mhm.
But it's not just getting people through the door, it's actually building organizations that are welcoming and have this sense of belonging to people that other, again, going back to the point, they might not even have known this thing existed, and now they're inserted into it and they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
What is
let's slow down. How does this all work and what do I do and how do I talk? You
Mhm.
literally have to learn a new language. That's why it's not just create internships for students in our community colleges and high schools. It's much more than that. If you're talking about bringing people into a profession that, if we want to be inclusive of the way we create this program, you're talking about potentially bringing people into a system that, one, they probably didn't know was available to them. Um, and we really have to make sure that we are creating authentic spaces that they belong to and that they want to do good work in and they want to stay in. We need public service. I think that without public service, we really don't have much,
Right.
right? Everybody wakes up every day and don't even think about like they threw away their coffee cup and they they're on their way to work. They don't think about the hundreds of people it's going to take to make sure that that gets recycled properly, or that the water running in their home is clean and healthy to use, that the stoplight and the bike lanes on the way to your job or to your school are properly functioning. We're so used to it that way in most of our communities that we don't think about it. And it's such an important profession, and it's even more important to bring all kinds of diverse perspectives and voices into that profession. And it starts at a young age, right? Understanding how we're going to bring in young people and emerging professionals into a space in an authentic way, and in a way that keeps them here, right? So it's a challenge. It really is. It's an uphill battle, and we're
Yeah,
learning every day.
I love it. I know we're at time, but I wanted to comment on that and then give you the space for any last words. But I mean, I think it's so eye opening, and I'm really just starting to open my own perspective a little deeper and broader, and think about this from more of a bird's eye angle. And I'm thinking of the idea of getting this information when we're doing career days, and we're thinking of career access, to include public service as a part of that, as a profession, because I think a lot of times it's not necessarily taught. And then our kids, when they finally, our communities of color, when they finally learn about public service, I think it's later on in their years, but learning about this very early on, so that they know that there is an opportunity for them to go into this sector, into this field, but also an understanding of what it is, what the profession entails. Because I
Yeah.
think there's a disconnect with really an understanding of what is public service. And then lastly, I would
Mhm.
really love, one of the reasons why I left public service. My public service is now very different. I'm serving in a role of CEO of an organization that I had the honor to found, and I think that's the best job in the world, and the best thing that I could ever do in terms of giving back and serving the
Yeah.
public. But in public service, prior to this, working in the state of New York, there are many reasons why I made that transition out. And Stephanie, I
Mm.
can tell you, I did not feel like I belonged. I was one of the youngest, also a woman of color, Black woman, and it was really difficult and challenging navigating through that environment and that work culture, which seemed very oppressive, and did not feel like, I did not feel like I belonged there. And that was a part of making that exit out of public service. But what I would love to see is public service reimagined, and public service the way it is intended to be, in a way that really truly represents the heart of local government, and that represents and reflects our communities and our neighborhoods. So,
Oh yeah.
love any last words that you can provide on what your vision or what that would look like.
Yeah, I think, like I said, my biggest goal is to do this in a way that's authentic, in a way that invites people that otherwise may never have known that these opportunities are available to them. That's my biggest hope, is that we bring those folks in, their families in a way that's authentic and genuine, and taking into consideration different levels of understanding of what public service is. And also another big goal of mine is to show um, how many different career options are available through public service. You don't have to be in politics, you don't have to be in finance, you don't have to be in these like management or executive type things if that's not what you are naturally inclined to do. But you are great with information systems, or you enjoy working outdoors and want to work for parks and recreation, or some sort of natural resources. If you are interested in water conservation or sustainability, if you're interested, I mean, the list goes on, communications, marketing, human services, if you are in the helping professions, there is a place for everybody in public service and local government. And I'm hoping to be able to translate that as well, because we need you. We need talented people here working in our local governments, helping people and making sure the day to day of everyday life runs smoothly. And we need your talent, and it's an honorable profession that you are able to, have financial stability and sustainability with as well. That's really important to our communities. And again, it offers you an opportunity to explore a lot of different career paths and also have that safety and that sustainability for yourself. So yes.
Love that. Thank you so much, Stephanie. That was so informative, so insightful, and this conversation has been so uplifting and elevating. And I think even for those that are listening and watching, has gotten so much wisdom just hearing your story and hearing your work and your vision. So we want to bring you back on. We'll connect, and we definitely need to talk about ways that we can even connect across cities, or City of Scottsdale and New York City, see how we can align our work, because I think that what you guys are doing out there in Scottsdale is absolutely amazing. It's relevant. It is necessary to the generation that is rising. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for your time, for sharing a space. How can people reach you if they have any questions, if they're in the city of Scottsdale?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Stephanie Zamora, MPA, or you can email me at szamora@scottsdaleaz.gov.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I miss you. I hope I see you soon in person.
I know we're still on live, but yes, I hope I see you in person too. Where I know one of the things that they mentioned was organizing something, but I have to fly over to Arizona. I gotta see you, and Sue will be on here too. I think maybe next week. So everyone that's watching, you'll get to meet Sue, who's also from the city of Scottsdale as well, and Stephanie's colleague, also my colleague at
Awesome.
Harvard IPP program. She's absolutely amazing, just like Stephanie. So you'll get to meet her. And I will be in Arizona. When I do, I'm going to take some selfies for you all, and we're going to post them, and we're going to have so much fun. And you'll get to show me all the great things of City of Scottsdale.
Of course. More than welcome.
I love
Thank
it.
you so much.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for watching. We really appreciate your support. Thank you again for sharing, for subscribing. We're seeing our subscribers go up. Thank you so much for subscribing to our YouTube channel. To stay up to date on our content, please subscribe. And for those that are following me on my professional pages, Shanequa Moore, continue commenting and letting me know how you're responding to the content. If there's things that you want to hear about that is not being covered, we also want to hear that as well. And then lastly, we do have our episode 2 of our podcast out for and available for download. You can download it on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or on Podbean. So please check it out. We'll be releasing episode 3 this Friday, so stay tuned for that as well. And we'll be back for our Fireside Chat on this Thursday as we talk about mental health in schools. So please stay tuned. Thank you all so much for supporting our content. We love you and we appreciate you. We'll see you soon.